I think I'm very naive. I think the things that everyone told me when I was a child, I totally believed. And one of them was, you always have to overcome your fear if it's something you really want. And I just thought that must be true, and I always did it. And only now do I realize that everyone else understood that that was kind of a saying. You don't actually do that, you know. Not if there's possibility of losing money or friends or dignity or something like that. But I was always willing to sacrifice those things.
The fourth is freedom from fear.
Dear Andrew, is writing a way to deal with your fears?
I will say that when I wrote Less and also its sequel, Less is Lost, which is coming out in a few months, I would sit in my chair and think, what is the worst thing that ever happened to me and how can I make it funny? Because I wanted to, not just because I thought it'd be good material, but because I wanted to release it from myself. If I could make it a funny story, then I didn't have to carry it anymore. You know, and then maybe other people would recognize it and it would release them. I sort of live daily with various small fears, but I enjoy overcoming them, you know, all the time. I consider myself to be brave, strangely, even though I'm a coward. Precisely because I'm a coward, that doing something like living as an openly gay man in the 80s, I did it because the alternative would seem to be depression, anxiety, and madness. And it seems brave, but it's just both options were equally terrifying to me. And so my first reaction is isn't about sort of a global sense of freedom from fear as a human right, but much more personal. You know, I vary my behavior to not set off any alarms in the people around me. And I certainly know lots of other people who, for their own reasons, vary their experiences. And they have to limit their true selves because they're afraid of violence or even just ridicule. A trip I did for my latest book, Less is Lost, is that I rented an RV for 6 weeks and traveled around small towns in the United States. Right after Trump was elected, I thought, I don't understand this country. And I thought, what am I most afraid of? I should go there. So I spent 3 weeks in the Deep South around Mississippi because I was afraid of it and I didn't understand why. And I thought, I'll just talk to people in bars and diners and see what they're like. And I also, again, got to look at my own ridiculousness as a middle-aged gay white Californian. You know, I would go into redneck bars and everyone would look at me because I'm cartoonish to them. And that was, I think, a sort of a brave thing to do, in a way. There is a conflict here in the United States between this sense of individual freedom of I'm going to do whatever I want, this frontier spirit, and then the idea of freedom from fear, which we all have to be together to make sure that's true for everyone. That can't exist if we're all doing whatever we want. And those are in conflict for us. And at the moment, I feel definitely the individual is winning here. And you can see the suffering of people who want us to bond together. I look at the world and I think, everyone's read all of these books and seen these movies where the theme was, we need to be kinder to one another. That's just about every book, that's the theme of it. and it didn't change the world. You know, I sometimes see that and I think, how could things be this way if everyone in America already read To Kill a Mockingbird, because they have to, and yet they still turn out, you know, white nationalist racists? What's the point of writing a book like To Kill a Mockingbird? But I'm very much an optimist, and I think I'm reacting to a swing of the pendulum, which is actually in reaction to a world that is changing for the better. That these things are on fire in reaction to a movement forward, and that I think art has always been part of that when it reaches people. A book like Less, which is a comedy, and which through great luck won a prize that put it into the hands of more people, I feel really excited that people who don't share my politics at all, and in fact are upset on Amazon that it has curse words in it, still love the book. And I thought, well, I think maybe I did something, but sort of by accident, that I feel like they have now read a book where being a gay love story was treated totally normally, so normally that they probably didn't even realize it was happening, and that they laughed at the jokes, which meant they were connected to it, and maybe it changed them.